Have you ever noticed something strange? No matter how much you try, you can never experience true, absolute silence. You close the door, you turn everything off, you sit perfectly still, and yet, something is still there. A faint hiss, a subtle pressure, a sound that does not come from the outside world, but from somewhere much closer, from within reality itself. Before we go any further, write in the comments what you hear when everything is quiet. Many people are shocked when they realize they are not alone in this experience. Now, if this topic intrigues you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your participation helps this discussion reach more curious minds like yours. Richard Feynman, one of the most brilliant physicists who ever lived, had a unique gift. He could explain the deepest mysteries of the universe using simple words, everyday images, and playful curiosity. And if Feynman were sitting next to you right now, he would start with a surprising statement. Silence is not the absence of everything. Silence is only the absence of what your ears were designed to notice. To understand this, imagine standing by the ocean at night. From far away, the sea seems calm and quiet. But as you get closer, you hear waves, then foam, then countless tiny bubbles bursting. The closer you look, the more activity you find. Reality works the same way. What we call silence is simply a place where our senses stop detecting motion, not where motion stops existing. Feynman loved to remind people that atoms are always moving, even in a solid wall, even in the air around you, even inside your own body. At a temperature above absolute zero, atoms vibrate endlessly. They never truly rest. That means that as long as you are alive in a warm universe, something is always shaking, colliding, and exchanging energy. But let us go deeper. Suppose you could remove all air from a room. No wind, no vibrations traveling through gas. You might think silence would finally appear. Yet even in a perfect vacuum, something remains. This is where Feynman's ideas begin to stretch the imagination. According to quantum physics, empty space is not empty at all. What we call a vacuum is more like a restless ocean of energy. Tiny particles appear and disappear constantly, too fast for us to see, but real enough to produce measurable effects. This background activity creates fluctuations, and fluctuations mean motion, and motion means that absolute silence is impossible. Feynman explained this using a simple idea. Nature does not like stillness. At the smallest scale, the universe refuses to sit quietly. Even when there is nothing, there is still energy vibrating at the foundation of existence. This is not philosophy, it is physics confirmed by experiments. Now consider your own ears. They are incredibly sensitive instruments. In complete quiet, your brain turns up the volume, desperately searching for information. And what does it find? The movement of your blood, the firing of neurons, the subtle ringing created by your nervous system itself. In deep silence, you begin to hear yourself. This is why silence can feel uncomfortable, even unsettling. The mind expects the world to fade away, but instead it becomes louder. Feynman would smile at this paradox. You are not hearing nothing. You are hearing reality without distractions. Think about this. If absolute silence truly existed, it would mean absolute stillness. No motion, no energy, no time passing. In such a place, nothing could exist. Not even you. Silence, taken to its extreme, would erase the universe. That realization alone changes how we think about reality. Silence is not peace. Silence is a boundary we can never cross, because crossing it would mean leaving existence behind. What you perceive as silence is actually the universe whispering at a level just below your everyday awareness. And this raises an even more unsettling question. If the universe is never truly quiet, what else is constantly happening around us that we fail to notice? What hidden layers of reality are vibrating right now, completely ignored by our senses? As we move forward, we will explore how these invisible motions shape matter, consciousness, and even the flow of time itself, and why Feynman believed that understanding this changes the way you see everything around you. Because once you accept that the universe is never silent, you are forced to confront a deeper idea. Motion is not something that happens inside reality. Motion is reality. Feynman often challenged people to rethink what they meant by nothing. If you remove all objects from a box, take out the air, block all light, and cool it as much as possible, you might say the box contains nothing. But physics disagrees. Even at temperatures extremely close to absolute zero, particles still jitter. This residual motion is called zero-point energy. It is the lowest possible energy a system can have, and yet it is not zero. Why does this matter? Because it means the universe has a built-in restlessness. Even when stripped of everything familiar, it refuses to shut up. Imagine a violin string. When you pluck it, it vibrates and produces sound. If you stop it completely, the sound disappears. Classical physics once believed atoms behaved the same way. Stop all motion, and silence would follow. But quantum physics shattered this picture. At the smallest scales, you cannot stop the string entirely. There is always a faint trembling left over. Feynman explained this using uncertainty. Not uncertainty as confusion, but uncertainty as a law of nature. You cannot know a particle's position and motion perfectly at the same time. If you try to pin it down completely, its motion becomes more unpredictable. Nature protects motion the way a river protects its flow. This constant microscopic movement has real consequences. It is why atoms do not collapse. It is why matter occupies space. It is why solid objects feel solid. The chair you are sitting on is mostly empty space, yet it resists you because of invisible quantum activity pushing back. Now consider sound again. Sound is vibration traveling through matter. No air, no sound. But silence is not defined by the absence of vibration. It is defined by the limits of human hearing. There are vibrations happening right now that your ears simply cannot detect. Frequencies too low, frequencies too high, motions too small. If your senses were different, your experience of reality would be radically different. A dog hears sounds you never will. A bat navigates using echoes far beyond your awareness. Feynman loved this idea because it humbled human perception. What you experience is not reality as it is. It is reality as filtered by your biology. And this leads to a fascinating question. When you sit in silence and feel uneasy, what are you really reacting to? The absence of external noise, or the sudden exposure to internal reality? In quiet environments, the brain loses its usual reference points. Without constant external input, it begins to amplify internal signals. This is why many people hear ringing, buzzing, or tones in silence. The brain is not broken. It is doing what it always does, interpreting signals. There are simply fewer distractions to mask them. Feynman would say that this discomfort reveals something important. We are not separate from the universe. We are processes happening inside it. Your thoughts, your awareness, even your sense of silence are physical events unfolding in time, and time itself refuses to be quiet. At the quantum level, time is tied to change. No change means no time. But since change never fully stops, time never truly stands still. Even in the coldest, darkest corners of space, quantum fluctuations ensure that something is always happening. The universe is forever ticking, even when no clock is present. This idea unsettles many people. We are taught to associate silence with emptiness, peace, and nothingness. But physics paints a very different picture. Silence is full. Quiet is crowded. Stillness is an illusion. Now think about this carefully. If the universe is always active, then chaos and order are not opposites. They are partners. Out of constant motion emerges structure. Out of noise emerges meaning. Out of restlessness emerges stability. This is why Feynman believed curiosity was more important than comfort. When silence makes you uncomfortable, it is not a flaw. It is an invitation to look deeper, to listen beyond what you expect to hear. And the deeper we go, the more disturbing the implications become, because this endless motion does not just shape matter. It may also shape consciousness itself, and challenge the idea that your mind is as quiet as you think it is. Because once motion becomes unavoidable, the next question is impossible to ignore. If everything is always moving, then where does your sense of stillness come from? Feynman would say that stillness is not a property of the universe. It is a mental shortcut. Your brain averages chaos into calm. It smooths constant microscopic motion into a stable picture you can live inside. Without this ability, reality would be unbearable noise. Think of a movie screen. You see smooth motion, characters walking, objects falling, but underneath that illusion are thousands of still images flashing rapidly. The movement is not in the frames themselves. It is in how your mind connects them. Silence works the same way. Your brain stitches together countless tiny signals and labels the result as quiet. But when those signals drop below a certain threshold, the illusion breaks, and what is left can feel deeply unsettling. This is why isolation tanks are so intense. People enter them expecting peace. What they encounter instead is amplification. Without external stimuli, the nervous system turns inward. Thoughts grow louder. Sensations distort. Time stretches. Some people report hearing hums, pulses, or vibrations that seem to come from nowhere. Feynman would not be surprised. He understood that perception is an active process, not a passive one. Your mind does not wait for reality to arrive. It constructs reality moment by moment. And here is where physics and consciousness quietly collide. At the quantum level, observation matters. This does not mean that human consciousness magically controls particles, but it does mean that interaction is unavoidable. To observe is to interact. To measure is to disturb. Absolute silence would require absolute non-interaction, and that simply does not exist. Even your attempt to listen for silence is an interaction. Your ears vibrate, your neurons fire, your brain generates patterns. The act of seeking silence creates activity. Now imagine a universe where absolute silence were possible. No fluctuations, no energy, no interaction. Such a universe would be frozen. Nothing could change. No stars could form. No atoms could bond. No thoughts could emerge. Silence, taken seriously, is not peaceful. It is lethal. This realization flips a deep assumption upside down. We often chase quiet as if it were a higher state of being. But physics suggests that aliveness itself is inseparable from noise. Not audible noise, but fundamental motion. Feynman once said that nature uses only the longest threads to weave her patterns. So every small piece of the tapestry shows the organization of the entire thing. That means the same restless activity that prevents silence also gives rise to you. Your heartbeat, your breathing, your thoughts. All of them depend on imbalance, fluctuation, and flow. Perfect equilibrium would mean death. The discomfort you feel in deep silence is your biology recognizing a state that is unnatural for living systems. But the implications go even further. If your mind is never truly silent, then what you call your inner voice is not separate from physics. It is matter and energy in motion, electrical signals, chemical gradients, tiny quantum events amplified into awareness. This does not make consciousness less meaningful, it makes it more astonishing. Out of endless noise, a pattern emerges that can ask questions about itself. And now consider this. If the universe itself is a seething field of energy, and your mind is built from that same field, then the boundary between out there and in here becomes less clear. Silence dissolves not just in space, but in identity. Feynman encouraged people to sit with this discomfort instead of escaping it, to realize that the strange hum behind silence is not a flaw in reality. It is evidence that reality is alive at every scale. And once you accept that, a final, unsettling idea begins to take shape. If motion is fundamental and silence impossible, then the universe is not drifting toward quiet. It is drifting toward complexity. What does that mean for the future of consciousness, meaning, and your place in a universe that never stops whispering? Because complexity is not an accident. It is the natural consequence of a universe that refuses to be still. Feynman emphasized that when simple rules operate endlessly, intricate patterns are unavoidable. The constant motion at the heart of reality does not produce randomness alone. Over time, it produces structure. Galaxies form, atoms bond, life emerges, and eventually, awareness appears, listening for silence that never comes. This means the faint hum you sense in quiet moments is connected, in a very real way, to the birth of stars and the firing of neurons in your brain. The same restless energy flows through all of it. Now think about noise differently. Noise is usually defined as unwanted signal, but unwanted by whom? By a human mind evolved to focus on survival, not truth. What we label as noise may simply be information we have not learned how to interpret. Feynman loved playing with this idea. He once pointed out that if you could hear atoms moving, the world would be deafening. Walls would roar, air would scream. Your own body would be louder than a jet engine. The fact that you experience anything resembling quiet is not because reality is calm, but because your senses are mercifully limited. These limits protect you. Without them, consciousness would drown. And yet, when external sound fades away, the protection weakens. You begin to glimpse the underlying activity that never stops. That glimpse is subtle, but enough to disturb the illusion of stillness. This is also why silence is so powerful in rituals, meditation, and art. It strips away the familiar layers and exposes something raw. But physics reminds us that what is exposed is not emptiness. It is fullness without labels. There is another consequence of a universe that cannot be silent. Predictability has limits. Because fluctuations never vanish, perfect control is impossible. This is not a failure of science. It is a feature of reality. Even if you knew everything about a system, quantum uncertainty would still inject variation. Feynman accepted this with joy. To him, uncertainty was not a weakness. It was the source of creativity in the universe. Without it, nothing new could ever happen. This directly challenges a comforting myth that if we understood everything, the world would become quiet and simple. In truth, deeper understanding reveals deeper motion. The more you learn, the louder the universe becomes. And now, consider how this applies to meaning. Many people search for silence as a form of escape. Escape from chaos, escape from thought, escape from uncertainty. But if silence is impossible, then escape was never an option. Instead, meaning must be found within the noise. Your thoughts are not interruptions in an otherwise silent universe. They are expressions of the same restless energy that shapes everything else. The universe thinking about itself cannot be quiet. This realization changes the question entirely. Instead of asking, "Why can't I stand absolute silence?" a more accurate question emerges. Why do I expect silence in a universe built on motion? Feynman would argue that this expectation comes from language, not reality. Words like quiet, empty, and still are approximations. They work well enough for daily life, but they collapse at the edges of understanding. And when those words collapse, people feel shaken. Not because reality has changed, but because their mental map no longer matches the terrain. Now we are ready for the final step. If silence is impossible, motion is fundamental, and complexity is inevitable, then your discomfort in silence is not a weakness. It is a signal. A signal that you are brushing against the deepest layers of how existence works. And in the final part, we will confront the most unsettling implication of all, that the universe is not indifferent noise, but an ongoing process that includes you, listens through you, and never truly stops speaking. Posso proseguir para a parte 5? Part 5. Approximately 6,000 characters. Because if the universe never stops speaking, then silence was never meant to be the absence of sound. It was meant to be a mirror. Feynman believed that the greatest mistake people make about reality is assuming it owes us comfort. The universe does not promise peace. It offers coherence through motion. When you sit in silence and feel unsettled, what you are really encountering is not emptiness, but participation. You are inside the process. Every vibration that prevents absolute silence is the same vibration that allows you to exist at all. The atoms in your body are not quiet. They are dancing. The signals in your brain are not resting. They are firing, colliding, reorganizing. Consciousness itself is a pattern riding on top of noise, and patterns require contrast. They require fluctuation. They require difference. A perfectly silent universe could never notice itself, because there would be nothing to notice. This reframes everything. The low hum you sense in quiet moments is not an error. It is the sound of reality maintaining itself. The discomfort you feel is not fear of nothingness. It is resistance to losing familiar reference points. Feynman often said that understanding is not about replacing mystery with certainty. It is about replacing one mystery with a deeper one. Absolute silence feels disturbing because it threatens a false idea we carry, that stillness equals truth. But truth, according to physics, is dynamic. Even the so-called vacuum has structure. Even emptiness has rules. Even quiet has texture. The universe does not pause between moments. It flows continuously, and you flow with it. Once you accept this, something remarkable happens. Silence stops feeling like a void and starts feeling like depth. Not the absence of activity, but the presence of subtlety. You are no longer waiting for the universe to stop making noise. You are learning how to listen. This is why absolute silence would not be enlightenment. It would be annihilation. Awareness depends on difference, on change, on motion. To exist is to vibrate. Feynman understood that this does not diminish wonder. It multiplies it. The fact that reality never fully shuts up means it is endlessly creative. The same restless energy that unsettles you in silence also gives rise to thought, love, curiosity, and meaning. So the next time you find yourself alone in a quiet room and that strange sensation creeps in, do not rush to fill it with noise. Sit with it. Recognize it. You are not hearing nothing. You are hearing the universe being itself. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all is this: the universe is not something happening around you. It is something happening through you. Silence never comes, because reality is always mid-sentence. That is what Feynman uncovered. Not a terrifying truth, but a liberating one. You are not disturbed by silence because silence does not exist. You are disturbed because, for a brief moment, you are face to face with reality without filters, and it refuses to be quiet.